Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Macro Lounge podcast. I am, of course, your co-host, Chris Bold, reporting live from the sunny Auckland today. And Rachel Mead. Rachel, how are things down there in Tauranga? All good?
Too bad. It's cold at the moment. It's very cold. Like, I'm not enjoying it.
I did say it was sunny, but I am still wearing like multiple layers, but and shorts, which of course drives everybody crazy. They go, well, it's cold, put some pants on.
Have you been infected by your British wife?
That's true. Yes. She's many strengths, my wife, but temperature control is not one of them.
Yeah, no, neither. I do not like the cold. I do not like it at all. It's not fun, especially when doing posing. And I feel very sorry for all my posing girls at the moment who are in posing bikinis doing their posing sessions because it's not fun. It's cold.
Has Ed gone as far as insulating the studio at this stage?
No, I have a heat pump.
Yes, but if you do it down in the studio, it's a very large space.
I have a small space heater that sometimes we put down there, and that's about it. That's all I got.
That's for you. You're just standing there in front of them going, cold, cold.
No, I am nice. I point it to my clients. And we shut the door so that it keeps the heat in a little bit more.
It's probably a good thing. Good idea. So this week, what are we going to rabbit on about, Rachel? We were going to discuss the progression of the criteria. It's actually got brought up randomly a couple of times this week from different people about, obviously, primarily focusing on bikini, how that has progressed through from, its inception through to now. And then obviously also looking at what judges are looking at, particularly from different countries. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. When you look at the different I won't say criteria, but if you look at the different results around different, particularly say Asia versus Europe versus the US versus South America, it's really interesting when you compare the pro shows in particular and go, it's like the old Sesame Street thing, It's like three of these things are the same, but one's not quite like the other.
Adding up.
Yeah, it's like, So anyway, we'll talk about that. And what else are we going to go on about today, Rachel? Anything exciting to?
No, I think that's probably the main one. Yeah, just going over the differences in, I guess, what they're also just over time, like what they've been looking for versus like the past, I would say 4 years have been huge, like just exponential growth in, I guess, the sport and difference in what they've been looking for and rewarding. I'd say I'm going to say every 5 years, there's quite a big changeover just in general across all criterias. And every 5 or so years, you end up getting like quite significantly different to what was rewarded 5 years previous, which is always interesting. It's always interesting because technically the criteria stays the same in most cases. Although, actually, side note, Chris, correct me if I'm not wrong, I'm fairly sure the bikini criteria used to say no shoulder caps. Did they take that away?
Yeah, but I don't think there's been a written revision of the rules in quite some time. In fact, the last time I remember seeing an actual full revision of the rules was around 2014. No, 2000. When did they split? 2017, when the IFBB Federation and the IFBB Pro League split. Then there was a reclass of the rules. But as such, it hasn't changed much. And I think even then, the only thing they pulled out was the requirements around the bikini.
Although figure actually technically still has a 50% coverage rule.
Well, we all know that's bollocks.
No, I don't think I've ever seen that followed, ever. Like, I don't think I've seen a single show where it's actually 50% coverage, which is quite funny because obviously Fit Model now is also supposed to be 50% coverage. It's not, but it's supposed to be.
Mathematically speaking, no. They should say, how could they put it? Modest coverage?
Well, they did. They did. But, I mean, what classifies as modest?
That's true. And that would also depend on what country you're from too, doesn't it? Because
exactly.
The Brazilian level of modesty is probably a little bit different than the Australian level of modesty.
It does crack me up, though, how it says 50% coverage, modest cut, no thongs. And I'm like, I kind of think. Yeah, you would think that would come under 50% coverage.
Yeah, pretty sure that would. Yeah, that would be okay. But yeah, I think it's like, we were talking about earlier when we were looking at it. I think when you really look at bikini in particular, or I would say even fitness is probably one that's shown the most, probably close to the most dramatic change over the last 10, 15 years. Like if you look at the original fitness Olympia champions and compare them to the fitness Olympia champions of now, that growth has exponentially outstripped even bikini. And yet when you look at the bikini Olympia champions or the pro champions from the IFBB Pro League perspective, and I think this applies across all federations as well, whether it's a PCA Pro, whether it's NABA Pros, maybe not so much in the natural federations, but definitely in the non-tested. The progression, and obviously because a lot of these athletes have now been competing for 10 plus years. I mean, you have to look at Ashley Kay for an example. You know, when she won the Olympia, she's like, and 10 years later when she's been weight training, and it's like, she looks like she ate the old Ashley. But I think fitness, when you look at those girls, like say, Monica Brandt, I think, was one of the original fitness champions, and just the progression of the muscularity improvement and growth factor. And what sort of started this topic of conversation was a couple of comparisons of women's physique, the way that it's going, and women's physique not even being the most muscular of the female categories. When you compare Dana Lynn Bailey to the current stock of pro levels, she would barely, not that much bigger than some of the bikini champions now. Maybe a little bit, not quite as exaggerated in the silhouette, but from a muscular mass perspective, yeah, she was. It's just really, where does it stop, I guess, is the question, isn't it?
Well, that is the question we've been asking for years, because even, so I've found a photo of I'm fairly sure she was the first female Miss Olympia for bodybuilding.
McClish.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah. Rachel McClish, 1990. She would be smaller than a bikini. Well, I've got what I've got says 1990. I don't know. It's very hard to find stuff from that far back.
Yeah. They were still using stones and chisels, being like.
Pre-2012, there wasn't a lot on the internet, to be honest. But yeah, she would be smaller than most pro bikini competitors these days. She would probably be closer to fit model, and she was in bodybuilding.
She would be.
And also not as conditioned either.
No. And then, you go through the progression-wise, if you go through from the Miss Olympia, remember, Miss Olympia technically is the bodybuilding class, right? Because there was only one division. You progress through to arguably the greatest Olympia female champion being Corey Everson, who, when she started her Olympia reign, and I think she was 6 Olympias, might have been more, I can't remember, it was a long time ago. And then at the end of her reign, it progressed up to Linda Murray, who was again more muscular, and then to Kim Chizevsky, I never pronounced her name right, Kim Chizevsky, and then up to like Isis Kyle. And you're talking pounds upon pounds of muscle difference. And it's just like, is it they get bigger, so they just move up a class? Or is it that as time progresses, what was a champion 10 years ago is now a champion of, women's bodybuilding around Corey Everson's time, or even Linda Murray's time, is probably on par with the figure girls of now. So is it the judging criteria has moved, or?
It's like Erin Stern. She was a figure champion, and now she's doing bikini. Mm-hmm. And she's probably a pretty good sized bikini these days. She's definitely not over muscular for bikini. And there has been a few cases of that where people have had to drop down categories because the category has outgrown them. And the argument often is that the criteria has not changed. You can only reward what's on stage. But in my mind, if these girls were to step on stage 5-10 years ago, they would have been straight away knocked out to the end because they were too muscular.
Yeah, they would have been pinged.
It's kind of hard to, I guess, justify that on just from my perspective.
Yeah, no, I certainly wouldn't argue with you. I mean, I think the interesting, and having experienced it from that side of the table and seen it happening, there used to be when you, like, from an amateur show, right? You had to win an amateur show to go pro, right? You had to win, like, the Worlds or whatever like that. I remember a show where, and it doesn't apply to bikini, but a men's physique athlete was that good. He probably would have been in top 3 at the pro show later on that night. But all the judges scratched him because he looked like a pro and he was competing in the amateurs. And I was going, isn't that the point? You want these guys to go pro, not say, oh, no, you're just a little bit too much right now. You shouldn't be an amateur. It's like, great, make him a pro. Yeah, it's like, as you said, it's like, if the criteria hasn't changed, and they do like to cut in all the federations, right? We're not slamming on any one individual, letter of the alphabet. They all say the criteria hasn't changed. Now they come out and state that the criteria hasn't changed. It's like, well, then how you're interpreting the criteria clearly frickin' has.
The interpretation definitely has.
Yeah, and then also how it's being interpreted internationally is different. How it's interpreted in Europe versus, Asia versus South America versus North America. So how is the athlete supposed to know? They always turn around and say, take the Pro League, for example. They say the Olympia is the benchmark, and that's what you should be aspiring to. But if the Olympia is the only one meeting that criteria and every other pro show is not, again, back to the Sesame Street, and I say this because look, you've got Sesame Street on today. 3 of these things are just like the other and one's not. What are they doing?
It's also hard because, like, for example, when I first started, bikini was said to be about a 5-year physique. And I know that was kind of actually even increased from just before I started, they said it was a 3-year physique. And so now 5 years later, it's at least 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how are you supposed to keep up with that when the criteria is growing 3 times faster than what an actual person can grow?
Yeah. And I think it also comes back, like one of the things that you mentioned earlier was like you're saying, about every 5 years it kind of gets reinvented. Like, it's almost like there's an evolutionary step, and it's like suddenly it's like, oh, we're going this way, or the athletes.
Which in bikini there often is, because it's like, for example, when we had Angelica crowned as champion, suddenly bikini became muscular. Before that, it was not very muscular. It was not, I guess, overly athletic look. It was more of like a model type look. Then Angelica was crowned, and it became like quite significantly more athletic. Like I know Ash K also brought that in to an extent, but I think probably Angelica cemented it. And then Janet Layu came in, brought in the tie-ins. Oh, sorry, actually Issa came in before that. She brought in like a crazy silhouette, which they actually frantically decided, no, that's not okay.
Yeah, they were like, yes, we want this, and then the next year they're like, no, we don't want that, we don't want that.
But I think she probably brought in more of the shoulders, probably, I would say. She brought in the upper body. Janet brought in the tie-ins. Now you need all of it.
But don't have too many tie-ins unless you're going to the Olympia. But I think back to that 5-year thing, I think that's a really cool observation, but I think it's even a little bit different than that. There's kind of like, there's that evolution about every 5 years, and then that holds for about 3. And then it gets a bit wobbly. It's kind of like they go, hang on.
Oh, we need to bring it back.
And they sort of try to reinvent. It's almost like they try to reel it back in a little bit and go, okay, go back. And then they go, fuck it, just let them go. And there's that 2-year period. It's almost like I've just started, for my cardio, I've fallen into this whole bloody Netflix Drive to Survive Formula One thing. It's kind of like the cars for 3 years. It's like, McLaren is the top of the chain, like, and then it's suddenly that year they've gone from 1st to 10th. And the bodybuilding is kind of like that as well. It's like top. No, we want to reevaluate this. We're going to bring that down. And then there's that 2-year, what the is going on? And then they come up with a new standard or a new rewarding a new look. And then that sort of goes for about 3 years. And then it's like, hang on, not sure. But it does seem about every 5 years, they do get bigger.
Definitely last year was the try to reel it back with Maureen. And then this year is the fuck it. We're going hard.
Yeah. Well, again, comes back to that. They constantly say the Olympia. And we're just talking about the Pro League, right? You should be looking at the Olympia as being the benchmark, and that's what you're aiming for. But yet, you can't help but look at the Olympia and go, but this is the only one that's rewarded for that softer, fuller look. Every other show, and again, depending on the geographic location, but if you look at any of the pro shows, even throughout the US, those girls are shredded compared to the Olympia. So it's kind of like, well, if one's setting the standard, why aren't the other shows following suit? And again, the criteria supposedly hasn't changed. And if it hasn't changed in 10, 15 years, well, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to put up the world champions from any federation and go, yeah, that girl does not look the same now as she did 10 years ago.
Well, if you look at Issa, for example, the year that she won, I would say that look would probably struggle to get a pro card these days just based on size. Shape-wise, definitely. She would take anyone out based on shape, but if they had someone there with decent muscle, she would not be able to take it out just because of how small she was in comparison to what they are asking for now. So it is a bit crazy to think that in 6 years, an Olympia champion, that amount of muscle,
and that was a dominant win too when she won it. There was no win by 1 point. That was up
landslide.
Right across the top. Yeah, it was a landslide. And then the next year she was like couldn't get a look at.
Yeah, well, I think they decided that they did not want to reward structure, and they have kind of stuck with that since then, which I'm not a fan of personally. I really love structure. And I will happily shout that from the rooftops. I love an athlete with a good structure, but they really wanted to make bikini into a category where anyone could fit into it in theory. So they decided to absolutely slam Issa and say, no, we don't reward structure.
Yeah, she was almost like, if she was bigger, she probably would have taken out figure because she had that Marvel superhero X frame.
Her shoulders are so wide.
Yeah, she's like, and then I'm pretty sure she's had at least 2 ribs removed from her rib cage because she's like, her waist is like,
Teensy.
it's like, you're like, must suck buying clothes.
She does do a lot of work to keep the waist tiny, though. She does do a lot of work on that. But
she,
yeah, no.
I've always been a massive admirer of that physique. But so with that progression, again, if we're going back to the criteria, and if the criteria hasn't changed, is this placing rewarding being driven, one, by the athletes that have been presented to the judging panels, obviously, because at the end of the day, they can only judge on what's in front of them, right? And the judges can't turn around and say, well, I'm very sorry, ladies, but none of you meet the criteria, so we've decided to keep this trophy for this year, and you can all come back and try next year. I mean, I'd love to see them do that, because that would be
quite
hilarious.
entertaining.
It would be. It'd be like, ooh, could you imagine the Reddit channels then? Oh my lord,
I'd be so upset.
that'd be hilarious. So obviously, at the end of the day, athletes show up, and you don't see the judging panel go, ooh, what the do we do here? So that obviously they're judging on what's put in front of them. So where's the disconnect? Is it the athlete? Is it the coach? Is it the judging panel? Which one of those 3 doesn't understand the criteria?
It's definitely a combination. I mean, it's a combination. Like, you can only reward what's on stage, but at the same time, if what's being rewarded is consistently, I guess, the most impressive look, the biggest, most conditioned athlete, which is not what bikini's meant to be, then coaches are going to bring in the biggest, most conditioned athlete because that's what's winning. So it is a bit of a cycle. Coaches respond to what judges reward. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think there has been messages sent, definitely, in the past. Like, for example, with Maureen winning last year's Olympia, that was a bit of a message saying, hey, we need to bring it back. Although it was interesting because then at the same time, 2nd and 3rd place were absolutely diced and they got told they had perfect conditioning. I don't know. That was an interesting one. But at the same time, if you're not rewarding that at other shows and other judges are not told that this is the look we want and this is the consistent line, then what are people going to do about it? They're going to go for what's being rewarded. So then it just keeps increasing.
Seen some athletes, some pros from New Zealand who competed overseas. They do their tours where they go, and which makes sense. Try and knock out as many shows as you can in a constrained period of time. You get feedback from one show, 1 week, that says you need X, Y, and Z. So, and to be fair, there's not a huge amount of modification you can make in a week outside of some conditioning-wise, water and sodium, what you're holding from a glycogen level. And then the next week, different judging panel giving completely different feedback. Like, oh, I told you you're too conditioned. And you're like, oh, hang on, last week I wasn't conditioned enough. Or you were perfect. The only difference was X. But hang on, last week they told me my shoulders weren't big enough. And it's like, well, if there's not consistency in feedback, then what the hell are you athletes supposed to do? And does that fall back again? Are the judges at that show misinterpreting the criteria? Or, I don't know, how is an athlete supposed to respond?
Well, that's the thing. Like, the way the response goes at this point is that they find out who's judging each show, and they think, okay, this person's judging. This is what they favor. This is what we're going to bring in because this particular judge favors this type of look. Because
I'll admit, I'll pull athletes if I will look at who's on the judging panel if we can, because generally, particularly in the European and the South American shows, they put up, hey, these are our judges and our stuff. And there are some judges I know that look at certain athletes a certain way, and if I've got an athlete that I know is that sort of look, then I will go, okay, well, look, I know that judge is actually going to be, more rewarding of this. So I'm more than likely to say, okay, well, you're going to do that show. And then if I see another one where I know the head judge tends to, from history, reward a certain way, and that's because I spend so much time looking at these damn things, so seeing what's going on, I'll pull an athlete from a show and say, look, there's no point you traveling there because you're going to get killed.
Because, I mean, it's like Europe, for example, we know that they favor conditioning. Same with Australia. Australia really likes conditioning. That's across the board. And then US tends to get a little bit fuller. I mean, depending on the show, though, depending on what part of the US you're in, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it depends on who's the judging panel. The US seems to be all over the place. If Tyler's judging, it's fairly consistent. He's got a look that he's trying to push out across the federation, and rightfully so. He's the vice president of he's clearly the face and the driving force of the federation these days. But if it's not Tyler or even Sandy's probably a little bit, she tends to reward a little bit harder by the look of it. If it's not driven by either of those two, the results are all over the place. And that's not fair. That's not fair to the athletes.
Which I actually just pulled up the criteria, which is, it's quite funny to actually read it. Bikini athletes should display a foundation of muscle which gives shape to the female body. Questionable. Small amount of roundness in the delts.
Please continue this joyous educational experience.
And full round glutes with slight separation between the hamstring and glute area. Conditioned core. And then just overall look. Should not display, hang on, this one, any graininess or striations anywhere.
Striations, okay, I can live with that. Yeah, I can live with striations.
We see a lot of striations in the delts, I feel like, at the pro level. And it says striations anywhere. It specifies any striations.
Yeah.
And that's not in capital letters. And I swear it used to say no capped shoulders too. I swear that used to be in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I am 99% sure it used to say in capital letters, no shoulder capping.
Yeah, well, well, if we're looking at the IFBB 2025 Europa Pro Championships, right, which is pretty much Europe's title, and the winner for that was Adriana Kuzmatic. I can never pronounce the name right. I don't know if you've seen pictures of her, Rachel, from this show. Technical capabilities would even allow me to share it. Yeah. Too many buttons going on.
Believe in you.
That's asking too much for me. Hang on. Okay. Let me just see if I can do this.
What was the name? Adriana. Oh, wait. Oh, screen sharing. There we go.
There you go.
Wow.
Right, so what was
Those
that criteria again?
Shoulders.
Yeah, that's some suggestion of shoulder cap there. Right?
Well, remember, foundation of muscle. I would say a foundation is the beginning of something. It's the base. You're showing it's the base of some muscle.
Yes, and there's some very good suggestion of some separation going on there. But again, that's just an example of the different judging, how the judging criteria is applied. And okay, look, it's at the pro level. But if you do that same exercise against the athletes in a South American show or a Asian show, none of them meet that criteria that you just said about. So how are you supposed to make that call? I don't know. As an athlete, what do you do?
You go for whatever's being rewarded in whatever show you're aiming for.
Yeah. And that's when, as a judge or as a coach, you kind of have to look. I will go, like if somebody says to me, oh, Chris, I want to do the NPC Euro Masters in Milan, for example. I'll go back or say the Arnold Classic in Brazil. I'll go back and I'll look at the overall class winners for the last 3 or 4 years and just see if we can get an idea of what's been rewarded on a consistent basis. Obviously, as I say, past behavior doesn't necessarily guarantee future behavior. You're a financial advisor.
An indicator.
It's a pretty good indicator of where they're going. And then I'll have a conversation with the athlete to say, I don't think that's the right place for you. For example, if you're a really shredded, hard type female bikini competitor, probably sending you to an Asian show like Hong Kong is not.
No, really they tend to reward quite a fuller look in Asia.
Yeah. And, again, sending you to, if you were a fuller look and then sending you to Europe.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. It's like, so you got to pick your battles, right? But yeah, so it's like, I don't know, is the athlete or the judge on a hiding to nothing?
I mean, it's like, I think the other issue is that they don't tell people if something, like say the whole lineup doesn't quite fit the criteria. Often they will not say that. Like you could say, look, we rewarded what was there on the day. The athlete who won was too conditioned. They were too muscular. They don't do that. Almost every time, I can guarantee they pretty much usually will say, they were perfect. They fit the criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that when I was judging where it was like, you can hear the bitching and the moaning in and around all the little groups and stuff like that about, well, clearly they're looking for a harder, more muscular look this year. And you'll be like, 1, it was the first show of the year. 2, that's what the athlete showed up on. So 3, we had to reward somebody. And I was also one of those judges that would turn around and say, well, actually, no, this is not right. This is just was here. And we had to reward closest to the criteria based on what was there. So it's like,
that's true.
Yeah, that's one of those shows. Sometimes you'll have those shows where you'll have 5 athletes will be one type of condition, and then you'll have 1 will be a different type of condition. And that 1, if they more closely meet the criteria, well, that 1 athlete is either going to be first or they're going to be last. What are you doing? Yeah. Rewarding on that person who meets the criteria and then getting it in the neck on social media because they're going, well, these other 4 girls were so much better conditioned. They were so much shredded. And you could bring up that criteria that you just read out, Rach, and quote it to them, and they'll still go, yeah, but the other 4 girls were jacked. And you're like, okay, I am talking to the brick wall.
Pretty much, because, it's just the interpretation changes and there isn't enough training for the judges worldwide, and then there isn't any accountability, I think, is part of the issue. So it's not necessarily the fault of one person, it is an industry-wide issue. We need better judging consistency. You should not be looking for this one judge judges this show like this. I'm going to do this show because I know that they favor my look. That should not be a thing.
You nailed it on the head there, though. There needs to be consistency of the judging panel. I used to argue at the pro level that if you are a pro judge, you should be you're like a pool, right? So you put your name in the hat and you say I'm available to do, and you'd have to say do. My theory was you have to commit to, say, doing 6 shows a year, 6 pro shows a year. And if you don't commit to 6 pro shows a year, you shouldn't be available to be selected. And then you are selected to do more senior shows based on your performance at the junior shows. It's just like, how they pick who's going to be the referees for international rugby games, But if you're in that pool, there should be a level of training. There should be a level of accountability. There should be a level of feedback. There's a whole bunch of things that should be required. There's not. The only federation that I know that does this now is the OCB in the US. You are required to attend a training session on the Wednesday before the show, where the federation reinforces what the criteria is. Your results are audited to see if you meet the criteria. In the old IFBB federation, they used to do a similar thing. Your results were submitted. They were compared to, and then you sometimes would get a please explain email. And you'd be like, that's why I used to take so many notes, because I get these emails going, Chris, why did you put this person in 3rd position? And I'd be like, as Rachel knows, I forget. Walk off stage, what? So I keep notes. I always have. I've got books and books and books of notes from every show I've ever judged. So I could go back and go, well, this is why I put this person here. As long as I can do that, I'm holding myself accountable, because at the end of the day, that's what judging is about.
Sure.
But these days, how often do you see when they post the scorecards? 7 judges, and every single one of them's got every single athlete in the same position. And I'm sorry, but I'm calling
bull. No, I agree on that. Like, almost every pro show, you can, the pattern I've noticed is that almost all of the top 10 will have the exact, divisible same score number, except for maybe there's 2 athletes that have 1 point difference. And that's almost 99% of the pro shows. There is 1 athlete 2 athletes that are 1 point difference. Somewhere in the middle there, everyone else has the exact same scores from every judge. And when you're seeing such variation from show to show, that doesn't make sense for the judges to have such high accuracy on what they're placing. Yeah.
Of all of them, but they all miraculously have the same opinion.
But their opinion changes from show to show.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, judging, it should be a profession. Right? It's a lot of responsibility for it. And there are judges that are better than others. There are some, we've had judges here in New Zealand who no longer judge, there's a couple of them whose opinion I highly value. And I would say probably some of them have the most astute eyes in the sport. And they don't judge for, various reasons anymore. But I don't, it's the judge's role is to enforce the criteria. And again, if they come back and saying we go back to what we were saying earlier, about the criteria changing, and if they're saying that it's not changing, well, then is it the judge's responsibility to sort of say, hold up a sec, sunshine, you are actually pushing it too far to the extreme, we're not going to reward you? Or are they crumbling to popular opinion, like social? There are athletes on social media that look like they should be an Olympia champion, but have never stepped on a stage. Are they folding to public opinion?
Well, see, I think the existence of fit model kind of destroys the argument that the criteria hasn't changed. They literally said it's 2010 bikini. So how do you then say that it hasn't changed since 2010 when you've had to create a whole new category?
Yeah, you can't. And
for me, that was the kind of pin of you can't even argue this anymore. How are you still standing by that point that the criteria has not changed if you've created a whole new category to be what the original category was supposed to be?
Yeah. And I think that, the correct thing to do is to come out and say the level of athletic performance has improved over the 10 years, and that has resulted in bigger, more extreme levels of conditioning, which can only be achieved with the increase in muscle mass. Because the reality of it is, if they said we're going to stick to the original criteria, an athlete at the bikini level would probably only have a competitive career of 2 or 3 years. Because then, by the laws of training, you will change. If you don't, then nobody goes to the gym to look the same every year. There's progression. There's a reason it's called progressive overload. You're going to develop. Well, you hope you go.
But I do think, though, the main issue that they are now having with how far all the categories have been pushed, especially the female categories, is that you are now not getting crossover or like athletes moving up a muscularity division. A bikini athlete who outgrows bikini is they're not going to wellness or figure. They're not doing it. A figure athlete who outgrows figure is generally not going to go to women's physique. And then they don't go up. They just cap it out and I guess wait until the criteria says, hey, or like the judging says, hey, yes, actually, no, this is a good level.
Yeah. One of them's got to catch up to the other, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that you're not getting people moving up the muscularities like they're supposed to. Like that was kind of the intention, is that you're supposed to be able to go up if you need to. But then you're at the bottom of the pile because the gaps are generally quite big. And the size cap for the females now is huge. Some of them are like bigger than the guys. Like it's like, obviously not at the pro level, but they're bigger than like some of the guys that are getting pro cards, I'd say. Like they're huge. And so, yeah, people are like, okay, well, I'm at the top level of my category, but I don't want to go to that next level to win that category. So I'm just going to stay here. Yeah. And then when they all do that, you end up with increased muscle mass, and it just never ends.
Yeah, and to be fair, it probably shouldn't end, because there's progress, right? I mean, it's.
But where do you cap it to the point of it's now, like we have talked about these PEDs on the podcast, and we are getting to the point where it's killing people. It's shortening their lives by decades. So when do you then say, okay, enough is enough?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, like. It's nowadays, when you win a pro card, you're almost expected to be able to step onto a pro stage. Whereas back in the day, it was when you won a pro card, you were expected to not compete for about 2 years because it took you that long to be a pro competitive physique. Generally because you were tested as an amateur and you were natural until you became a pro. And then you were like, oh, look, he's now walking on stage at 230 pounds when he won his pro card at 175. Who's going to draw the line? Is it going to be driven by the federation? Is it going to be driven by the athlete? And I personally think it should be driven by the athlete because I think it should be driven by the federation. They are the ones that should be enforcing the rules. But I think it's going to be driven by the athlete. And I think it's going to be that's happening. Yeah, I think it is happening. And I think that's going to be driven by athletes going, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to take that risk. So I'm not going to put myself into that show or into that federation. I'm not going to set myself up to be, I won't say fail, but to not be competitive, because ultimately they're competitive. And I think that is why you are seeing the increase in athletes that are doing not as many shows in a federation and then either A, retiring, or B, moving on to a different federation where they are competing more frequently and for a longer period of time. And the only people who are going to enforce that change, frankly, is the athletes. Because at the end of the day, if you guys aren't happy with the results that are coming out, and when I say you guys, I mean athletes, right? If you're not happy with what is being presented, you're not happy with the judging criteria, it's your money that is supporting these federations. You are paying for this. And if you, out of a blind brand loyalty, are continuing to do it, then you are feeding that beast. And the only one who's going to change that is when that beast realizes they're not getting fed. And as long as they're getting fed, and I've always said, there's always fresh meat for the grinder. You only have to look at any of the federations across the world. You see the churn of athletes, and the ones that are at that elite level physique, they come back and back and back and back again. As long as those ones coming in at the bottom rung, if they're not coming in,
Yeah.
You are the ones that drive the success of the federations. And if you give them, whether it's whatever alphabet that you want, you're the one that is driving this. And so if you don't got to wake up and realize that you're the problem, don't go blaming everybody else.
The issue is, though, as well, that it's no one person can actually change that. It has to be a majority. And just quick disclaimer, we're not necessarily saying that being like very, very muscular is a bad thing. Like people all have their own what they want to look like.
It's personal choice, right?
Exactly. So we're not necessarily saying that anyone looks bad for looking like that or anything. We're not saying that at all. It's more that it is very difficult on the body to get to that stage with the amount of drugs that are needed. And for 99.9% of people, it will have major health impacts. So it's not to say it's not a good look or anything. It's about the health impacts and like what the sport is encouraging people to do to get there. So just quick little disclaimer on that one. And also, again, some people don't have the ability and some people do not want to. Like, for example, I actually told Chris when I signed on to him for coaching, like, I never want to get as lean as I was in 2023. I hated what I looked like because I just did not like being that lean. I did not like the look. That was just me. Some people absolutely love being shredded and they want to be super diced all year round, which you should not do, but they love it. Whereas other people do not. So it's, the main issue is that they're not just asking for size and they're not just asking for the conditioning, they're asking for both, which is not entirely possible and natural for 99.99% of people.
No, there is the odd genetic freak out there that can do it. But when it comes to the size... But again,
they're still capped at a certain size.
Yeah, but when it comes to the size factor, that I think that's a personal choice, right? When you're talking about, there are, like female bodybuilding, those female bodybuilders are huge. Do I find it physically appealing? Do I look at anybody, and I'm not saying from a level of attractiveness or any form of sexual connotation in there. It's, do I look at it
like
and go,
art, like a statue?
Is that a work? Do you look like a Greek statue? And I go, no. And I also, to be honest, I say the same thing about open bodybuilding and men. I look at it and go, no. And I think that's why Classic is doing so well, because that's sculpture, refinement. Bodybuilding was supposed to be
aesthetic. It's supposed to be an aesthetic sport.
I do not like mass monsters. I do not like them in any class, whether it's male bodybuilding, female bodybuilding. Do I think that athlete does not have the right to make the choice to be as jacked as they want to? No, that's their choice. They can do what they want. With my dollar, I won't support it. I make that decision. I go, hey, more power to you, but my money's going over there. Yeah,
so the categories are just they're evolving too fast for most people to catch up to, and then you're getting we're not getting the shape that bodybuilding used to have. Like you don't get the aesthetic Greek statue that they used to have. Like even in figure, like I actually said it a couple of times that a figure died when Sid retired, Sid Gillen.
Yeah,
because she was incredible, and I don't think anyone will touch her for a very long time because she just had such an amazing shape. And I think for females, males are slightly different, but for the females, the feminine part of the criteria is slowly dying.
That should be the number one. That should be the first one. What did I tell you on the first day, Rachel? I said 2 things we're going to do for you: protect your femininity, protect your health.
Yeah, which neither of which are happening at this point. Oh, not for me, for the criteria. Sorry.
I was about to say, hey, hang on, what have you not told me?
Hang on, no, for the criteria, neither of which are happening. Back it up. And, that one. For me, both are happening. It's fine. Okay, and even with the guys, like they don't have the shape as much anymore because they're getting the blown out waist, the gut, and it's very blocky. I will say it's not the Greek statue kind of look that it used to be.
No, but again, whose fault is that? Is that the athletes? Everybody. You go back to the Olympia. There was a stage when they started drug testing the Open Olympia.
That didn't go well, did it?
It did not go well. The conditioning was just, I remember like Sean Ray failed a drug test, Jay Cutler failed a drug test. There was a whole bunch of guys that, mainly they were failing for diuretics. And you're like, what about all the other shit that you're on? So they were drug testing the Olympia, and the conditioning was really bad. And everybody complained about it. And it's like, they don't look as good as they should. They need to be better conditioning. And so what did they do? They stopped drug testing. And everybody likes the mass freaks, right? They go to see the mass freaks. I don't remember the last time I looked at a Mr. Olympia winner and went, damn, that is a beautiful body. Like that is a work of art. Probably Phil Heath, maybe Samson Dowder, but even then, like he's walking on like 370 pounds or some ugly. He's massive, but. Since Phil, really? Has it been a symmetrical balance? Something that you would look at and go, wow, as opposed to, damn, there's a big difference.
And I think that effect is filtering down the categories as well, slowly. It's going all the way down. I mean, men's physique, I feel sorry for, to be honest, because they, like, the men's divisions is rough because they do not have a category that is, I guess, capped for size technically. I mean, now they brought in the weight criteria, or the weight caps. I mean, not that they are very strict. They're not very strict on their height and weight measurements, I would say.
At the pro level, they are. At the pro level, they put a cap in for men's physique now, which is fine.
They did, but I would question some of the height measuring.
Yeah, I would too. And if you look at the guys that are winning the men's physique shows, they are massive. It's like, it was supposed to be a beach body look. I mean, you go look back to like when Steve Cook and that was competing. Oh my God, they wouldn't get a look in these days.
I remember going to an IFBB show and seeing one of the New Zealand pros for the first time in person, and I was like, shit, they're humongous. Like, a random person off the street might think that they were actually in bodybuilding because of how big they are, and you just don't realize how big they actually are in real life. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're massive.
They don't have, even men's physique doesn't have the shape that they used to. They don't have as much of the taper from the shoulders to the waist.
Yeah, generally they don't. And again, that doesn't just apply in the pro league. That applies across all the federations. The difference being, say, in the natural federations where it's very clear there is a line, and that is probably more genetically enforced. You cannot have that level of muscularity. Yes, you can be huge and you can be jacked. Don't get me wrong. You don't need gear to be a big unit, but there is a completely different look in the overall presentation at the male level in particular. And so you are seeing that line in between the classes. I mean, people go, oh yeah, but and then they'll say the same about, say, an FMG athlete versus an IFBB Pro League athlete. And they go, oh yeah, he'll get monstered if he did the IFBB. Well, there's a reason he doesn't do the IFBB Pro League, because he doesn't want to look like that. It's. And there's a reason a natural athlete is not going to go and compete in the upper echelon of, pro federations, because it's a different look. And again, I think go back to the starting point is there will always be progression, right? So the bikini, can you imagine what bikini's going to look like in 5 years?
It's going to be nuts, because even now I look at some of the backstage photos that you see, the candid ones, and I'm like, they look bigger than figure. They almost look like they should be in physique just from backstage, not posed. And obviously you don't have a size reference of an actual physique competitor, but for someone who isn't looking at a direct comparison and you just guess the criteria, it's very hard to guess what criteria people are doing these days.
Yeah.
Even Fit Model is not taking long to catch up. Like Tara Greer has dropped down to Fit Model from bikini. I remember 2 years ago thinking she was too jacked for bikini. Apparently she was too small, and is now doing quite well in Fit Model. I think she came second in a pro show recently.
Yeah.
It's crazy. People, definitely underestimate the amount of muscle for Fit Model. But yeah, so even Fit Model is the level of a new pro bikini athlete, is what I would say. It's not even amateur bikini. It's the level of a bikini pro.
I mean, obviously, we don't want to stifle progression, right? We don't want to stifle competitiveness. We don't want to stifle people training to the maximum of their ability. But the reality of it is, if you train properly, right, to failure with progressive overload, and you're continuing to improve, you're eating properly, you're doing all that stuff, you will grow. That's kind of the point. So unless you're training within yourself, and most people, actually, to be fair, most people don't train properly anyway. They're a bunch of wusses. I was training with one of the girls in the weekend, and I just said, stop being a pussy bitch.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I mean, I couldn't help myself. But if you're training to that level that everybody says, to be successful, you got to, never surrender, don't quit, all that sort of crap, you will grow unless you train within yourself. And most people, when they go to the gym, they are going to the gym to push themselves. And even if you're not pushing yourself to the maximum extent, if you're pushing yourself, I do use the term reps in reserve, but I don't particularly like it. But if you're pushing yourself where you're like, fuck, that was a tough workout, and you do it consistently, and you eat appropriately to support recovery, what's going to happen? You're going to grow. And if you keep growing and you keep competing, those classes are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So what are they going to do? Every 5 years, bring in another one?
Do you think that athletes who reach the outgrow a criteria, do you think they should move on to the next division?
Yeah, I do. I also think there should be enough of a difference between each criteria, which technically in the male classes there are. I had this discussion with an athlete at the gym the other day. He was like, do you think I should do men's physique or classic? I said, well, I think you need to make your mind up because they are both very different. There's got to be enough of a variation where you have to train differently for it. So I don't think it's just size, like men's physique versus classic. There's a difference in the shoulder caps. There's a difference in the separation between the biceps and the triceps. And, they don't have, the joke is that men's physique guys don't train legs. Well, they do. They just don't have that bodybuilder look. So they don't have the hanging hamstrings, the massive quad sweep, because they
don't need it.
But I think when you reach a level of development where you have become into a maintenance mode, where obviously you're not going to improve, and this goes back to what we were saying a couple of weeks ago, Rach, when we talked about athletes that come back every year and look the same, then I think you should step up to the next class. And that might mean having to take a year off in order to more closely, not just from a size perspective, but it might be, as I said, from going from physique to classic, you need to change the way your shoulders look. You need to change your arms. You need to do this, that, and the other thing. And from the women's category, I think the same thing. It's like each class has a defined criteria. And then I think once you've reached that criteria, and if you don't go pro, whereas obviously a step up in the criteria again, then I think, you should consciously say, well, okay, I'm no longer bikini. In ICN, for example, you would go from bikini and say, I actually have too much muscle for bikini. It's too easy for me to actually, not easy, but when I get into condition, I'm now getting harder and shredded because of the muscle mass. Then logically speaking, you would step from bikini into fitness model. I think that is what you need to do. And if you're going to keep competing at the amateur level, then you should be stepping up in criteria. And then if you make the choice, okay, I'm as big as I want to be, cool, stop there.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people, because bodybuilding is very self-encompassing. It's very, very much takes over your whole life. People get very locked into the identity of their category. So, and especially with, for example, there is a clear separation in the female categories with the posing. Male categories, a little bit less so, except for physique. That's the one kind of odd duckling. Come on, that's like the one that's like quite different. And then with the female categories, you have your bikini, wellness, fit model, relatively similar-ish. Obviously, you have slightly different poses, but overall similar style. And then you have your figure physique, bodybuilding style, which again, obviously different poses, but it's a very separate way of posing, like the overall way that you do the posing. And to move across one of those often can be quite hard for people to wrap their head around in terms of, I guess, the look that they're going for. So yeah, definitely. And also, no one wants to be at the bottom of the pile. Nobody wants to get to the top level of their muscularity and then go straight back down to the bottom.
It's like snakes and ladders, isn't it? Say, I'm winning. Yeah, we'll go back down here.
So yeah, nobody wants to do that. So especially at the pro level, if you get like, say, pro bikini and you're at the top level of like muscular, you're being told you're too muscular for bikini now at the pro level, do you then want to go to pro figure and be at the bottom?
Yeah. And the answer is generally no.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're not I think the Federation doesn't entirely encourage it. I don't think that's the Federation's fault necessarily. Although, do you think that they should?
Well, I think they should do it by rewarding, if they say, look, you are actually leaning towards this class, then they should not, even if you're at the top of the food chain, they should literally say, look, you're actually not reflecting the criteria anymore. We know you're the world champion, but time for you to move on.
Share responsibility.
Yeah. Share the love. Yeah. But yeah, it's a complex thing for athletes. It's a complex thing for judges. And the accountability side has to be shared across the load, from the federations down to the judges, down to the coaches, and down to the athletes. And all of those people have to be on the same page. And the reality of it is they're not.
They're not.
And
there needs to
until
be
that
more
happens,
cohesiveness.
Yeah. And it can't be a popularity-driven contest. I mean, there's coaches out there that are given privileged treatment in all federations. There are athletes out there that are given privileged treatment because they were certain coaches or certain sponsors. And we're naive if we say that doesn't happen, because it does. And it's not our job to call people out and do that sort of stuff. That's not the sort of podcast that we try to do. We leave that to people like Muscle Discord or those other sort of.
They've had some tea over there lately. So if anyone wants a little bit of tea, head over to Muscle Discord, because that's drama.
I even had Lee Haney on there the other day, and he was not holding back either. I was like, "Ooh, shit!" The Southern Gentleman let loose on them. So
yeah, they've had a few people being very outspoken lately, which is, depending on if it's true or not. It's cool if it is true that people are speaking out. If it's not true, then obviously not cool.
If it's true and people are speaking out and something's done about it, great. If people are speaking out and nothing happens, well,
I mean, at least people are aware that way if it's true.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's true.
But yeah, no, definitely. Like it is a tough one, the progression of the sport, because obviously you want progression, but you also need to draw a line at some point. So
Yeah.
I think for the open classes, like the bodybuilding open, then I mean, yeah, you can't really cap that because that's the top level of muscularity. Everything else probably needs to have a little bit more of a stricter cap, I think.
But you can cap open bodybuilding by literally saying it's still bodybuilding and there's still symmetry as a class. You can't just make the overwhelming rewarded aspect is mass, because then guys like, what's his name? Brain fade.
I got nothing.
Walker.
Nick
Walker would win everything because it's impressive, but ugly, but impressive. I mean, there's nothing symmetrical about the guy. You know, does he get the mass criteria? Nails that. Conditioning, pretty much gets that. Symmetry, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's a tough one because it's just no shape left to it. There's no shape left to it.
So I guess in sort of wrapping up our little rant about all these different things, probably haven't shared anything useful for anybody. It's
a discussion.
Everybody has to be accountable, from the promoters, the federations, the judges, the coaches, and the athletes.
There's only been one major uproar of federations that I know of, which was the death of FMG.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. Sorry, no, the birth of FMG and the death of WBFF. I've never heard of anything else happening like that ever before. I don't know about you, Chris. No federation has just died like that. And that was based by the athletes. The athletes were like, hey, no.
Predominantly in Australia. WBFF is still pretty strong in Europe.
But yeah, they were kind of like, no, this is not okay. All us pros are now rescinding our pro cards. We don't want to be associated. And then the federation basically died. It's still kind of around, but...
Yes, yeah. But
it's not what it was.
Look, there have been people who have come out in the past to try and take down the dominant force in professional bodybuilding, and they've failed dismally. You know, it's brutal. But the reality of it is, the dominant federation is there for a reason, and it's supported, rightfully or wrongly, by promoters, sponsors, athletes. And the only person who's going to change it's going to change from the bottom. And revolution starts there. And
we're not saying to take down necessarily, by the way, guys. We're saying to make change.
Yeah, make change.
We're not.
Hopefully, enough people talk. All of the federations will listen.
Are we inciting revolution? Are we inciting rebellion?
No, yep, we are. Viva la revolution! We're going to get T-shirts made with Che, what's his name, Kagura on it.
The Don't Be a Dick Revolution.
You don't be a dick revolution. There we go. That's another T-shirt. Valerie's going to be pissed. Look, you've got voices, use them. You've got cash, use it.
Or don't.
Or don't. Yeah. Look, it's your choice at the end of the day. You know, the sport's a wonderful sport. Every federation has its strengths and weaknesses. Every local federation has its strengths and weaknesses. Every show has its strengths and weaknesses. And ultimately, as a fan of the sport, I just want to see the sport grow. And I don't care where it grows. I just want to see it grow.
There we go. I think we should probably end our round there because we're going to get in trouble soon.
What, we're not already? Jesus.
In more trouble. More trouble.
Yes, we should leave it there. Anyway, hopefully we've shed some light on, where things are going and why they go and our opinions on it. Remember, this is just our opinion, and if you don't like it, don't listen. Simple as that.
Go away. Please come back.
Valerie's going to be going, Jesus, these two.
And with that, I hope you enjoy your cardio or wherever you are at this early time in the morning on a Monday morning, and enjoy the rest of your week.
And please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow on Spotify and YouTube. It really does actually help people find our wonderful level of let's see if we can get cancelled diatribe. But we appreciate your love and support, and we'll see you all next week.